Hello, so today's the 30th of July 2025, of course. As always, want to give gratitude to God, my spirit team, my ancestors, and my spiritual guides who have been helping me, whether you know about me or not, but you've been helping. So I found out something about the car. So I've been getting messages again and again about my car and about something about car and something about credit score. So basically what's been happening is the car that I spoke about what happened, but then afterwards I got this message that my mother or my parents, what they did is while I went to Rome shortly after this accident I had, and that was sort of that was while I was still trying to get the car taken back to the dealership, or the dealership was supposed to come and collect it, but then they said, oh, you can't, you have to do it, you have to get it delivered. And I got it delivered back to them through this tow truck driver who had helped me on the night of the accident, and I paid him privately to take it there and to get a receipt saying that it's been done. But in the meantime, my parents, who knew about this, I was staying at a B&B near my parents' home at that time, because I was flying from Stansted and it just made sense. And also I was still trying to keep in contact with them, even though I didn't want to live with them. And they knew about this whole issue, and they knew that I needed to leave the car there. So what I did is I had this form printed out that was saying something like, I've collected this car on behalf of this person, and the date as like a proof. So I had a blank form, and I also put the keys to the car in the dash, because I knew the car wasn't locking and the battery was completely dead. And I spoke to the owners of the B&B, who were very nice, and they basically said, they were very supportive. They were fine. They were fine with the car being there, as long as it was kind of picked up. And I told them it would be picked up very soon. So apparently my parents went and took the spare key from my car. So the 2 sets of keys, they took 1 set, and I think they also took the receipt form that I printed out, because it had disappeared. The tow truck driver said it wasn't there, and he had to have the mechanic write down that he'd received it on a different piece of paper. So that they took that and the key, and my mother gave the key to a practitioner, and I think I know who she is. She's a tarot reader that we've I've also had readings done from her, we've done it together. And she actually traveled to India. My parents, or my mother, traveled to India to give this key to this woman, this practitioner, and asked her to do some kind of black magic. And what this lady did is she looked into her. She kind of knows me, and I think she's always known or had a good idea of my powers, even when I didn't. And she kind of looked into this me, and she realized I am not someone she should mess with. But she was like, oh, this is good money though, because she's quite greedy. So she took the money from my mother, but she didn't do the black magic that against me. So and instead she kind of worked for me and sent the demon back to my mother, because when you do something like this, you kind of, that demon needs to go somewhere, or the negativity, whatever you want to call it, that needs to go somewhere. And now my mother has an attachment, a demonic attachment, because of what she tried to do to me regarding this car. I don't know what she was trying to do. I think I know, it was some kind of spell work. Actually, I don't know how it relates to the keys of the car, but it was some kind of spell work to get me to go back to them, because they've been sending emails, and she's been doing all these passive aggressive comments, including things like sending me this advertisement to a flat in London and saying, if you want to stay here, winter's coming, it's gonna be dark. Actually, like, I don't know if my dad wrote that or my mom wrote that email. It just sounded it didn't sound like either of them. It sounded like it doesn't matter, they're one team anyway. It doesn't really matter who did what. But basically, like, saying like, it's winter's coming up, we want you to have a roof over your shoulder, my dad, we'd be happy to be a guarantor and pay the rent, whatever, if you want to come, just come to look into this house or apartment in London. I didn't respond to that, because I was like, you're just interfering again. I will do what I need to do. I mean, I literally would rather be homeless than to be in any way attached to them, like financially, emotionally, name it, whatever way that, I've done all this hard work to get detached to get away from them. So why would I go back, right? But that's what they want me to do. Why they want me to be. That's why me getting sick as well. It was a time when I was feeling more emotional. So they thought they'd be able to get me to go back to them. But I didn't do that. I knew better. But there was a little bit of longing and a little bit of, when you're sick, you're more emotional. At least I am. And I did go through a very brief period of wanting to go back, but I knew that wasn't real, because knowing what I know, going back would have meant, I don't know, they might even have killed me. I wouldn't put it past them. Another thing, so that was the thing with the keys, and that practitioner actually worked for me, but she took money from my mother, so I think we're even. Although I don't really like your work ethic, but I never have. I mean, you've always been quite greedy, but at least you had enough sense not to mess with me, because I am protected by my ancestors, by God, and because I am here to do something good in the world. Not because I'm not being arrogant. I'm just saying this was my purpose. This was the purpose for my life, to do something good for the world. And anyone who tries to get in the way of that will have to suffer the consequences, whatever they may be. Because I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any black magic. I'm just trying to live my life. But God doesn't like, or my spirit team and my ancestors, they don't like it when you try to interfere with my purpose. Because you have no right, frankly. Another thing I learned is that someone's, probably my parents, probably my family, stole my identity to the dark web for marriage to a foreigner. Like that mail order bride or something. I don't know how that works. I've been told that the authorities are involved, that there are good officers who are working on this, federal government. I frankly don't believe it, because I've only had bad experiences with the authorities so far. Like I was saying, I might as well tell you now, because I've posted it on Facebook already. So I was framed in a money laundering case in India. So what happened is, while I was away from my parent, I got a phone call from the Indian High Council, I think, from Indian High Council in the UK, saying that I need to, there are some documents, some legal documents that are linked to my phone number, and my name, that I need to come and collect. And I was like, what phone number? What kind of documents? What? And they told me about this phone number, and there was a case against this phone number because apparently people were caught making calls sending really abusive text messages to people from a number that was under my name. And I asked her to tell me what the number was, and it wasn't my number. I was not. So then she told me I need to, since if someone has used your identity to buy this number, and there's now cases against this number, so I need to complain to the police. So I did. I said okay. Then she put me through to the police, the Delhi police, the headquarters. And while I was giving that complaint, they did a check on my passport, and they found out that I was a suspect in this big Dang Brothers money laundering case, and I was suspected of laundering I think 84 million or 8.4 lakhs. It was a lot of money through a bank account in New Delhi, SBI Bank, it was an account that I had never opened. And as soon as they said this, I was like, obviously after the initial shock, I was like, okay, this sounds exactly like what my brother did. He did the same thing. He opened bank accounts in my mother's name, and these bank managers let him do it. And then they did he took out a car loan in my mother's name. And he did all sorts of things like this. So I realized this must be him who had done it. And they even found out a time when the time that I was in India for holiday, but I never went to New Delhi. I was in South India. That's where we usually go. And basically they did all this, and apparently there was a arrest warrant out under my name, literally. So this was all through video call via WhatsApp, because I was giving a video testimony a statement. I was giving a statement, and I said, if I was the real suspect, why would I call you to make a complaint about this phone call? So they were like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Why would you? And they basically kind of gave me the sort of believe me, I guess. And they told me to go to a hotel and check in, and I was not allowed to talk to anyone. I wasn't allowed to I had to have the phone all the time. I had to not say anything apart from bare minimum essentials. So I checked in, and then I had to be under surveillance, under video surveillance the whole time. I had to keep the phone where they could see me, they could see the entry points. And I basically that was for about 10 days. That was my life. And I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone else. I wasn't allowed to send any messages, apart from from my parents. My parents, I was allowed to respond to them because they didn't want any suspicion, them getting suspicious and doing stuff. So but I had to share my screen. So whatever I was sending, the officer who was surveilling me would tell me how to respond. And I also couldn't take any phone calls. So even my dad actually called me a few times, but I couldn't pick up, and then that caused problems with him later and with my parents later. Like, they were really horrible, because they felt like I was just being difficult, but I was actually literally not allowed to, and I wasn't allowed to talk to them. I wasn't allowed to talk to anyone. Even to go to the toilet, I had to ask permission. It was possibly the worst experience of my life, but it made me this is what made me so strong. And during this, I was talking to them constantly. I was telling them all this history with my brother and the fraud that he's done. I had to tell them all my family history, the issues between my parents, also my extended family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, all of, like, because there's a lot of issues there. Like, there a lot of jealousy, a lot of crap. So, and they also told me that I need to either submit my money to the government, to the Indian government and to the UK government, because I had money both. I had my savings in the UK and I had money in India that was basically like I had a fixed deposit of 5 lakhs, and then I had a bit of more, like, that was for expenses and stuff that was in the Indian bank account. And I had to submit all of that because they were like, that's the only way we can clear your name, because all the evidence is against you. And it's only because you're being completely, like, you're complying fully with us with this custody, and you're telling us everything, and you're letting us hold you in custody, in digital custody, and that's the only reason that we haven't arrested you, because all the evidence is actually against you and there's no evidence for you. And so then, and I said, well, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm willing to submit my money if that's what you need me to do. I just want to be cleared of this. I don't want to go, because they said, if the arrest warrant had come in, then if I hadn't called into them, they had already, like, processed the arrest warrant, so I would have been arrested and deported to India, and I would have been sent to jail. So I avoided that with God, I guess. He protected me. It's the first time I'm actually really talking about it. So this is what happened so I submitted all of my money, and they looked at it and they said, the UK money especially, because I had to, like, deal with the MI6. So there's an agent from the MI6. Okay, again, there's a part of me that feels like you thought this might be just a scam to get my money, and I even expressed that concern, and they're like, no, you're dealing with authorities. And the thing is, how do I know? I don't. I still, like, I still have a suspicion, but the thing is, I actually suspect that it was the government, but the government also scammed me by not returning my money, because that's what's coming through now, that they just took my money. It is the government, but they themselves took my money, and they thought, I would just not do anything about it. So I was saying, so I submitted all of my money, and the UK people, it was Sir Edward Jacobs, I think it was his name, and he was from the MI6, and he got me to send the money over through, like, cryptocurrency. I had to download crypto stuff and do it that way, like a back way of doing it. And they had to guide me through that. And they examined the money, and they basically said it's been heavily, like, there's some real issues there, which if I, they kind of saved me in the nick of time, because if they hadn't found out, if I hadn't submitted the money and they hadn't found out this way, I would have been in a lot of trouble. And they basically said, okay, this money is like, we cannot we need to like issue fresh currency from the bank for you, so you don't have issues with it later. But in the meantime, I also need to have my Indian money examined. So I submitted that too, because at that point I was like, the thing is, even though I suspected it's a scam, I knew that if this was not a scam, the consequences of me not doing what they say would be to be deported and sent to jail. And I was like, I would rather lose all my money than be sent to jail, because at that time I couldn't think of anything more horrible than losing my freedom that way. I mean, it was horrible enough being under digital custody, being monitored all the time, being surveillanced. And my surveillance officer, this Indian called Ritesh Kumar, he was super creepy. Like, he started like in the beginning, he was like a brother. He said he thought of me as like a sister. But then, like, after talking to me a lot, he started being very much closer than he wanted to have a relationship with me or something. And he was acting very, like, too close, too familiar, being very, like, being inappropriate. And I had to, like, put the boundaries down and keep calling him Bhaiya, which means brother. And I think maybe he took that as a rejection, then that hurt his ego, and maybe that's part of why he also turned against me, because I reached out to him via LinkedIn after all of this, after I was free, and he basically ignored my messages. Like, all of them ignored my messages. Like, first I said, I have some more information about about the family situation, about who might have framed me, so if you get in contact with me, I can help. That was ignored completely. And then I got in touch again when my savings were when I was really running low on money and I needed my savings. I reached out to the CBI, I reached out to him, this officer, and I also reached out to the to MI6. All of them just completely ignored me. And then I thought, you know what, fine, at least I still have my freedom. And also I was worried about, if I go public, that it might mean that people who are actually involved in this will kind of be alerted, and therefore people who had their money stolen from them in India, these are millions of people who are just getting by day to day, and for them, and they had their money stolen from them. And I didn't want to be the cause of them not getting justice, and that's why I kept silent for so long. I mean, this happened. When did it happen? It was like late May, early June. Was it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I can't remember the exact date, but this is, it will be on those. I can find out later. It's not really important. So yeah, this is what happened. This is what, and then after I submitted it, the Indian money, they looked at it and they were like, okay, there's nothing wrong there. And they were like, okay, we'll get back in touch with you later. You're free for now. So they basically got me to submit all my money. Then they said I was, cleared of suspicion, and they let me go. And then they completely just took my money. Whether this is a scam or not, I still don't know. I think it was legitimate in the sense I was a suspect in a real case and I was dealing with the authorities, but then they took my money and just kept silent. And that's what I think happened. Maybe wrong, but this is what my intuition is telling me. And I've also got some messages about governmental scams and etc., and the fact that the authorities have just they've signed non-disclosure agreements. But the thing is, all the things I've been through afterwards, I have grounds to sue all of you, all of these officials, because I actually went through horrible. So I went through homelessness, I went through poverty. There was a day when I didn't eat anything except for like a pain au chocolat, because that's all I could afford to eat. I had like £1, and that's all I could afford to eat. So what you did to me, I mean, I could sue you all.